Can you guys hear us okay? Boy, this is really running slow. So much for our high-speed internet, huh? Let's see. Loud and clear. Oh, you can hear us? Oh my God. Well, that's good. I don't know why our picture's just up in the corner, unless you guys can see it full screen. Not sure why it's so little. Okay, well, let you go sit on the couch and we'll see if I can get this looking right. Sorry that took a while. I didn't realize we had to load some other kind of software. You'd think YouTube, you just hit a start button and it would go. Well, now it's offline. Wonder why it's doing it in just a little itty bitty thing. Why are we offline now? Oh, stream resumed. God. Video output low. Yeah, I don't know if this is just that our internet stinks. It's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Well, that sucks. I wonder why it just has us up in that little left corner. Let me look at the thing we're using and see if there's some way I can make this so it's more of a full screen. Wonder why it has us so low. I mean, they have it set up so that you can use this for gaming, so I guess the rest of it's supposed to be like you watching us play the game. But we are the game. It has screen capture, game capture. I don't know why it has it so... Let me see if I can make it bigger this way. Hold this for a minute.
Hey, everybody.
Well, I think I made it bigger by pulling it. We'll see if it gets bigger. Of course, everything is buffering and going really slow. Hopefully you can hear us better. Do we sound like... is our audio flowing? It's just the video not flowing. Can you scoot the chat down a little bit, Denise? Do you see where the chat's at? There you go. Is the audio buffering? Well, we want to welcome everybody to our live stream, even though it's not streaming very well. We are upkeeping the tradition of telling ghost stories on Christmas Eve around the fire. If you tip that down a little bit, Denise, maybe they can see the fire sitting here. I know on the audio you can probably hear it cracking in the background. Okay, so that worked. So what we have here are submissions to our flash fiction contest that we did for our anniversary show. These are the ones that weren't in the winners category, but they still were really good, and so we wanted to share those with everybody, and so we thought we would carry those over to the Christmas Eve episode and do that. So our first submission we have here is from Katrina Ray Salas, and it's entitled Tomorrow's Queen. Let me get my flashlight going here. The cracked paintings of former queens were foreboding around the walls of the great hall. Centuries of Women. Okay. Anybody hear what we're saying? That says we have 3 people watching. I know there was somebody else I think that came in too. Well, I don't know. Because Erin was hearing us loud and clear. I'm not sure. Not sure why she can't hear us. Does she have her audio up? Is the audio turned on her video? Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Of course, watching the live stream, it's running a lot. It's not like doing what we're doing currently. It's like, here's my chest. Now it says we got 5 watching. Well, I wonder if we could do this simultaneously with Facebook too. Okay, well, I'm not sure why this isn't working. I wonder if we go ahead and do Facebook simultaneously. Since this isn't cooperating with us. All right. If there's anybody on YouTube right now that's in the chat room, let us know if you can hear us.
Hi, Heather. I see you in chat. We're having some technical difficulties. Surprise, surprise. Can you hear us? Okay, Gina and Heather can both hear us. Yay. Okay, we're going to get going pretty soon. The stream is running really slow.
So we're also going to live stream on the History Goes Bump page.
And so I think that Diane said we're also going to live stream on the History Goes Bump page. So the picture may be behind our voices on the YouTube, but we'll also have Facebook Live going, right?
So we are also going to simultaneously be doing it over here on Facebook Live. So hopefully you guys can watch and hear and see at least in one place. So we got our little fire going here.
Oh, you can't hear Diane. That's because she's not over here. Here she is.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right, I have the live stream going over on Facebook as well. So if this video starts driving you crazy over here, you can watch over there as well. So Merry Christmas Eve, everybody. And thanks for joining us around the campfire here to tell ghost stories, is the tradition dating back to Victorian times. And we've done this, I believe, every single year that we've been doing the podcast. So this would be our 4th time doing this. And we're going to be sharing some of your flash fiction. And also I have a book of gothic chilling tales that we can also pick a few stories from there if you all would like that. So we'll be looking at both screens over there on Facebook on the phone and over here on the computer. And we're recording this, so this will be up in the free feed tomorrow as well, if everything goes according to plan. It looks like our stream's going pretty good over on YouTube. It's a little bit better. All right, so our first story is by Katrina Ray Solis, and it is entitled Tomorrow's Queen. The cracked paintings of former queens were foreboding around the walls of the great hall. Centuries of women who had run the country, many for longer than she had been alive. The wars, the famine, the disease, they'd all braved and fought and vanquished, heavily in their confident gazes. Fear choked her throat. She hadn't even been raised to do this. She could never be these women. A war she didn't believe in was being waged in a country she couldn't always find on a map. Soldiers were scattered to nearly every corner of the world. She'd seen their photos. These old queens wouldn't have known their soldiers. They lived in a different time, a different world. Not this world that seemed to be both growing and shrinking simultaneously with each bit of new technology. But they had battled plagues, and so had she, the lone survivor of the royal class. She took a deep breath and did her best to mimic their faces, to wear their mask of conceit and pride. She looked at the crown in its glass box and shivered. She was tomorrow's queen. Each pin from her hair tinked, tinked, tinked into the small silver dish on her table. She felt the woman's hands in her hair, not actually sure what her name was. She looked up in the mirror and the woman smiled. As she looked away, though, she did a second glance. "Do I know you?" "No, ma'am." "You seem familiar." The woman smiled but didn't answer. She just kept pulling pins. Tink, tink, tink. Tomorrow's queen didn't even have to pull back her bed covers. Someone else did that, too. "You're sure I don't know you?" "No, ma'am." Tomorrow's queen woke in the night. She didn't know at first why she had awoken, and then she remembered the cracked faces of the queens. She crept slowly from her bed, looking for the maid. She fumbled for her cell phone, turning on its built-in flashlight as she made her way down the cold castle hallway toward the faces of the queens. And there she was in the painting, her skin faded and cracked, with one of tomorrow's queen's hairpins in her right hand. "Do I know you?" tomorrow's queen asked. The response seemed to whisper through the air and sound inside her head at the same time. "You are me. You are all of us, and we are all of you. But I'm not. I'm just me. Tomorrow you become queen. Tomorrow you become us, and we become you. You will never be alone again." Tomorrow's queen ran back to her room and slammed the door behind her, but when she turned there was the woman, the hairpin woman, and the voice again around her and inside her. "You are us, and we are you. You are us, and we are you." The woman stepped closer to tomorrow's queen. Memories flooded her. Her childhood outside of castles. She wasn't supposed to be queen. Years planning to be a teacher. She'd even started college, but then the illness had come. Everyone had died, and she was the closest thing to royalty. She was the only one left in a world gaping with holes, gaping with missing people. All she had seen, all she had survived. You are us, and we are you. You are us, and we are you. All at once she knew this as a test, but she wasn't sure she could pass it. You are us, and we are you. You are us, and we are you. She took one deep breath. Her voice strangled the words, but after a moment she spit them out. "I am not afraid. You are us, and we are you. You are us, and we are you. I am not afraid." Her cell phone battery bleeped and went dark. Yesterday's queen disappeared in the darkness. The hairpin tinked to the floor. "You are tomorrow's queen," echoed around her. I don't know. Did she disappear into the painting, Denise?
I don't know.
Faded and cracked.
I'm going to see if some people have put stuff over here, 'cause I can't read that far.
Well, it is kind of hard to see the chat from here. Let's see, who all do we have in here? We've got... Who? Oh, cool. We've got Jenna, Heather. Are you the only two that are over here on YouTube? I know Aaron was here earlier.
There's 5 people I know. We might have missed some people on the Facebook Live just because we can't see from over there. But if we haven't said Merry Christmas to whoever's watching, or Merry Christmas.
Did you want to read the next story? You want me to? This is Emily Reidner, Mr. Black.
I wasn't raised in a normal house. Before I was born, my parents bought an old house and converted it into a nursing home with an apartment on the top floor for us. For as long as I can remember, I've gone from room to room, visiting with the residents and spending all my time hearing stories from their youth. But of all the people I've come to know as family, Mr. Black is my favorite. One of my favorite parts of the day was when I got home from school, and after having a quick snack, I would go to Mr. Black's room to either read to him or hear stories from the Western Front. Today I skipped my snack, too excited to bring Mr. Black my new Hardy Boys book, and ran from the 3rd floor apartment to Mr. Black's 2nd floor private room. I passed Daddy, who was painting the hallway white, and he scolded me to calm yourself. With an apology over my shoulder, I began to the last door at the end of the hallway. I opened Mr. Black's door after my customary quick 2 knocks to find him. Gone. His bed and side table gone. The closet empty. It was as if he had never been here. I knew better. Mr. Black was near 90. He must have passed away sometime after I'd left for school this morning. I backed out of his room and walked dazed back to Daddy, who kept painting as if nothing was wrong. I stared for a moment at his brush-covered, the obnoxious blue that I hated. Finally I said, "Daddy, where's Mr. Black?" Daddy jumped slightly, clearly broken out of his painting spell, and gave a small sigh. "Honey, Mr. Black had to go away." "I know he died, Daddy, but how?" I asked, trying to emanate the same stern look Mama would have given me when I told her my hair didn't need to be brushed because Mrs. Ruth had already done it. He simply shrugged and started painting again. "He didn't wake up, sweetheart. At his age, that's not shocking." I wasn't satisfied with his answer, but what else could he tell me? I slowly trudged up the stairs to our apartment and went to my room, suddenly too tired to deal with how empty the nursing home suddenly felt. Daddy woke me for dinner, and I reluctantly joined my parents at the table. "Is something wrong, Audrey?" Mama asked, and Daddy immediately cast her a look, begging her not to open this can of worms. "Mr. Black died," I replied. Mama's eyes immediately went to the ceiling, and her fork clattered to the plate. Daddy took a gulp of his drink, probably whiskey, and cleared his throat awkwardly. "I am calling the doctor in the morning, David," she said, and stood from the table, walked out of the dining room. In a few seconds I heard the door slam shut. I looked to Daddy. "What does she mean, Daddy?" He looked at me, a sad smile on his kind face. "Nothing, Angel. Go say goodnight to everyone and go to bed. I'll take care of the dishes." I followed Daddy's orders, said goodnight to the other residents, and made my way to bed. On my nightstand sat the new Hardy Boys book I had planned to read to Mr. Black. It now held no appeal, and before succumbing to sleep, I decided to immediately return it to the library in the morning. When I woke the following morning, I was met with my parents and a man I had never seen before at the dining room table, waiting for me. "Please sit down, Audrey," Mama said. The strange man smiled reassuringly at me, and I sat across from him, curious as to who he was. "Hello, Audrey," he began, his voice soothing. "How are you today?" "Fine," I replied, sitting up straight, like how I was taught. "That's wonderful. Have you seen your friends today?" he asked, and I became confused. "No," I said, and then looked at my parents. Mama was white-knuckling her coffee mug, and Daddy looked guilty. "Do you only see them downstairs?" the stranger asked me, and I was startled. "My friends? My parents would never allow more than one 9-year-old to wander this house with residents." "Of course not, only at school," I clarified, so he wouldn't ask another ridiculous question. He gave a short, reassuring laugh. "No, Audrey, I mean the old people, the ones you read to." "Oh," I said, "I haven't been down yet, but I'm sure they're fine. Still reeling from Mr. Black's sudden death, but I'll read to all of them and make it better." The stranger's smile turned sympathetic. "That's very kind of you to make them feel better, but I think I have some people at my hospital that could use a good reading. Would you like to read to them? They could use cheering up." "Okay, but I have to do my chores first," I told him, and my daddy laughed sadly and shook his head. "Honey, your chores are done, and we packed a bag for you. You'll be reading to the patients for a while," he said, a single tear rolling down his face. Go ahead and say goodbye to everyone, Audrey, and I'll let your parents know when to expect you home." The stranger told me, and for some reason I felt I should not only leave the room, but the nursing home altogether. As I walked to the apartment door, the last thing I heard was the stranger tell my parents, "It's likely delusions, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan. Children naturally have active imaginations, but I believe you were right to call us. My advice, though, would be to finish the restorations quickly, have the priest come and bless the whole house, and tell no potential buyer this home was a place for the elderly. And, Mr. Callahan, for God's sake, if you have another child, don't play along with their delusions to appease them."
Now, that was an interesting story, but what's even more interesting is they're trying to act like this little girl is hallucinating these old people, I guess. But then he tells them to have a priest come by the house and, just bless it, just in case. If they're delusions, why would you need to bless the house? So he must be thinking there really are ghosts there. And then what good is it going to do to take her to a hospital because you think she's having mental issues? She's really seeing ghosts.
Yep, so great story. Gives people a lot to think about.
Thank you, Ellie, for writing that one. I've seen some people posting stuff over on Facebook if you want to go check that out. All right, this one doesn't have a title, but it's by Paige Strong. Once upon a time in these very woods, a girl got lost. Her friends had dared her to walk into the woods alone. They called her a scaredy cat. Sure, she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't back down from a dare, though, so she took her phone and started walking away from the campfire, kind of like the one we have here that's smoking. It was a clear night, but no moon. The trees cast black blankets over some of the stars, while other stars watched unhindered. The firelight reached into the trees like fingers raking against the darkness. She took one step, then another, and another, grasping her phone like a lifeline. The firelight dimmed around her feet. A nighttime creature shrieked from the darkness, and she whirled back to face the distant fire. "See, Scaredy Cat is coming back," someone jeered. "She can't do it." Angrily, she dug her heels into the fallen pine needles and turned her back to the safety of the fire. 5 more steps, and she couldn't see the firelight. Just a few more steps, just to say she had done it, and she'd go back. Pacing forward cautiously, she stubbed her foot on a root. She switched on her phone light and saw the top of her toe skinned and bleeding through the flip-flop. Time to go back. Turning back towards where she thought the campfire was, she shone her phone light towards where she wanted to go. Sure she knew her way, she turned the light off. She didn't want the other girls to think she'd cheated, even though no one had said she couldn't use a flashlight. She started walking in the dark. She was sure she hadn't gone quite this far from camp. Checking her phone, she saw it had been at least 10 minutes since she had stubbed her toe. Her toe was throbbing. Her heart was hammering. She was caught between terrified and annoyed. She really didn't like this game anymore. If they teased her, they teased her. She no longer cared. She called out, softly at first, not wanting to wake other campers. Then louder and louder and even louder until she was screaming. There was never a response. She gave up. Crying, she looked at her phone. She'd been more than 30 minutes now. Someone had to have missed her by now. She turned it off again, then froze. Her phone. She turned it back on again, found the group text the girls had been using, and began to type. Let me flip the page here. I took a breath before finishing the story. The next morning they found all that was left